I'm normally the one messaging influencers, but she messaged me randomly.
Simone Biles that was in the Olympics.
Yeah. And she was like, how do I order? How do I pay you? And I was like, oh no, you don't have to pay me. I'll just send it to you for free if you can just post on your Instagram story and tag my brand.
Welcome to Profession Session, where young entrepreneurs, business owners, and professionals come to tell their stories, how they got into the industry that they work in, and things that have made them successful.
My
guest today is Chandler Sutton. Chandler, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to get into it. You do a very interesting thing in your business. I want to kind of dig into it. What got you into it? How you got started?
Great.
Awesome. So you work in essentially what I would call, I guess, e-commerce, but in the jewelry industry.
Correct.
So I guess let's start with how you first got into that.
So I'll tell my little story. So I started in high school, and for Christmas, I wanted a necklace, and my mom was like, just make it, because it was like the leather and pearl necklace that used to be really popular when I was in high school. And my mom was like, just make it. I was like, no, I just want it for Christmas. So I got it for Christmas, and when I went to school, everyone was like, oh my gosh, I want that necklace, because normally the only place to get that necklace was like in Seaside for like $200 for that one like freshwater pearl necklace. So I was like, after that day, everyone asked me, I was like, maybe I should start making this necklace. So I did. I went home, I started making it, and then that weekend I played basketball, so I sold at my tournament literally just to my high school friends, made $1,000 in a weekend. I was like, okay. And that's when I really got inspired and started, I was like, maybe I should do this, because it was easy money. I could play basketball while, easy. I don't have to, get another job. So that's how I got into it, really.
So we kind of just went straight through that, but what do you think it was that made you think, like, I should just make one to sell people? Like, did you think that people would buy it? Was there were people telling you, like, if you had this, I would buy it? Or was it just kind of like intuition?
It was just kind of like motivation when I went to school, and everyone's like, I want that necklace. Did you get it from Seaside? I was like, yeah, I actually got it for Christmas. And I was like, maybe if I could make a cheaper version from, Hobby Lobby, that's what I did. Get some, not the real freshwater pearls and sell. I was like, maybe this could be, an easy sell. I can make money. So it's really just like motivation when everyone asked me where I got it from. I was like, let me try to sell it and then buy it from me.
Yeah.
So that's how, yeah.
And then talk about like validation of the idea, making $1,000 the first time.
Yeah, definitely. That was like a ton of motivation. I was like, okay, maybe I should start doing this. I never thought I would start a boutique. That was really never what I wanted to do. But after that, I was like, this is an easy way to sell. It's not like the normal job you would say, but I was like, I love it. It was great. And it was like a good motivation to get started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so at this point, I guess it's mostly just a side hustle when you got started, right?
Yes.
It's like something
100%.
You mentioned, like it was something that you could fit into your basketball schedules.
Correct.
To be able to do. At what point do you think it became like an idea that it could be like a full-on business?
So I would say fast forward, like in high school, I kind of just like half did it. In college is when I was really like, okay, this is like a full business. I really want to pursue this. In high school I pursued it, but not 100% until college. That's when I was like, okay, I want to do this. I love doing this. I love selling. So it's like mainly around college.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we should mention you went to college for basketball. We kind of talked about that in high school, but you went to college for basketball.
Correct.
On a scholarship, I think, right? Scholarship to play basketball, and then it's something that you could still kind of keep doing.
Correct.
I think you said, you mentioned off air, you did take a little bit of time off from doing the jewelry freshman year.
Yeah.
Because you had like some money saved up from doing it in high school, and had a little bit of a buffer to be able to kind of figure out college.
Right. Yeah.
So at this point, did you foresee yourself returning later to it, or was it kind of something that you were like, it got me to where I'm going now, I'm just going to do this college thing and figure it out?
Yeah. So freshman year of college, I was still going to do my business, and then it just wasn't. I was just like, okay, this is too much. Being a freshman playing basketball is like, I'm just going to stop. And then I was like, that's when sophomore year I was like, dang, I need to start doing this again, because I had all this money saved up and I just blew it freshman year. And I was like, let me just start doing this again. So that's like sophomore year, I really was like, okay, I want to do this again.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So sophomore year, you start getting back into it. And what did that look like? Was that still just kind of like selling to people you knew, selling to people around you?
Yeah, it was mainly like that. And then really sophomore year, I sent my items to like a ton of influencers on Instagram. And that was when, influencer marketing was really big, has always been big, but that's when I feel like a lot of people around my age weren't doing that. So I was like, let me just send a bunch of my items to like a ton of influencers. And they weren't like huge influencers, just, the people that have like a good following on Instagram, not all like famous or anything. But so I just started doing that, and that like made my brand explode in college. Like helped me get a ton of followers up again because I wasn't posting my freshman year, so I pretty much lost followers. So it just helped a lot when I sent my items like influencers, and that's how I got started again.
Very cool. And so we kind of, I guess, also missed another point there, which is that it sounds like even from the beginning you had like a strong social presence, and that was like a big part of it for you.
Yeah.
Was that something that was again just kind of like the intuition? Did you just think like, if this is going to be something that grows, I need to be growing like a social following around it?
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, if I didn't want to do pop-ups and stuff, I would have to be selling online. So having all the followers and everything helped a ton with my sales and everything like that.
I think you mentioned also off air that at this point, not until recently really, did you have a website. So at this point, you're really just selling through social,
Instagram.
through like in person and on Instagram.
Yeah, and everyone's always like, why did you wait forever to get a website? For me, I sold to like college girls, and a lot of people in high school really too. I didn't start a website because no one really had a credit card. I don't want to use their dad's credit card. So want to like give me cash or Venmo or PayPal. So that's how for the longest time I was like, it works for me. I don't need a website. And even when I had my website, when I first started, majority of the time people were like, can I just Venmo you or Cash App you or give you cash? I'm like, sure. But I mean, having a website helps a ton now, obviously. But that's how I got started. And that's why for the longest time I didn't have a website.
It was working.
Yeah, it was working.
If it's not broke, why fix it?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So you're in college now, you're starting back up, and so with the influencer reach out, was that just basically you kind of cold DMing these influencers and saying like, hey, I'd sell these products, would you be interested in me just sending you out a couple samples to check out?
Yep. And I would say in 9 out of 10 times they probably would not respond, but the one time they would respond and it would work. And then I would just tell them like the requirements, and I wouldn't pay them or anything. Some of the influencers would ask for payment, but that's when I would just be like, sorry, it's not in our budget. And then sometimes they would even say, oh, then I'll still take it. Can I pick the item? I'm like, sure. But yeah, and then I would say like the requirements. They would post on their Instagram, tag us, and then talk about our jewelry, and that was it. And then I would be like, and then for an encourager for them to do well, I'd be like, if it goes good, we'll send you more pieces every month.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So kind of just establishing like a continued relationship.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that 9 times out of 10, you just get no response.
Right.
So what do you attribute like the ability? I mean, like if you're just kind of thinking about that on the surface level, it seems like you would get discouraged,
right?
Like it's not working. What do you think? What do you attribute like the ability for you to like see the bigger picture and like keep moving on through that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of motivation just because I know like if that one person would post and get me a ton of orders, it's so worth it.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'm just gonna keep going. And also sometimes what happened to me a lot is influencers actually reach out to me. And I'd like, sure, send them some items, and I would send them all my stuff. They wouldn't even post and just block me, like ghost me, not post. Yeah. But again, that would be a huge discouragement. But I'm like, okay, 9 out of 10 times, once they do respond and it does work. It's so helpful. I got a ton of orders. So I'm like, let me just, even though I'm like, I don't want the chance of them not posting, but it's so worth it after all.
Yeah, and it definitely worked out.
Yeah.
And while we're kind of on the subject of the influencer thing, we mentioned also kind of like in preparation for this, you've had a couple like big moments with influencer types. One notable one was you mentioned Simone Biles that was in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So what did that feel like when she just reached out to you?
Yeah, so she randomly, because I'm normally the one messaging influencers, but she messaged me randomly a day. Oh, I didn't even remember what day it was, but it was so random. And she messaged me. She's like, hey, I would love, and this one before I had a website. And she was like, I would love these necklaces. Can I order? How do I order? How do I pay you? And I was like, oh, no, you don't have to pay me. I'll just send it to you for free if you can just post on your story, Instagram story, and tag my brand. And she was like, okay, sure. And she felt so bad. I was like, no, I promise you're doing me a favor. So it was really awesome when she reached out.
That's amazing. And I think you mentioned to this day you still don't know like how she heard about it.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened like,
right.
From like you being out there and doing your thing. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If that's not a testament to just like what building and kind of an organic following like that. 'Cause
Right.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you've had a couple other ones as well, like just kind of reach out to you out of nowhere and just really give you like those big boosts.
Yeah, and sometimes like my best friend, she loves like YouTube people, and I don't even know like half the people. I don't watch YouTube a lot, and one of the ladies on YouTube, she's like a YouTube star. She reached out to me, and my friend, I was like, "Do you know who this is?" She's like, "Oh my gosh, she's so famous. I know who she is."
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's so cool how they just find me randomly when I don't even, I don't know how. But,
Absolutely,
yeah.
it's kind of you've built this thing that's just kind of like almost its own engine now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just because you did a lot of that like cold reach out at the beginning, it's kind of built that.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to go back to one thing. So you mentioned at the beginning, obviously, you were just kind of making your own stuff. Like, like you wanted to find a cheaper alternative to be able to provide like the same look, the same
Right.
kind of stuff that people were looking for. Eventually, I'm sure that had to become like, with the volume you're doing now, you had to figure out some kind of way of sourcing all of that. What did that look like? And how did you first get into that?
Yeah, so how you said, at first I just made everything myself, and then when I started doing a lot of retail, a lot of orders, I was like, okay, I need to find a good vendor that I trust, and that's the hardest part, is finding good vendors. It takes years literally to find someone you trust, has good jewelry, good quality, everything like that. But once I found it, it was just like so easy, a breeze. It was just like perfect. And then it was just like easy to get my jewelry, to get it all made and everything like that. But I still make some of my jewelry, but most of the time I have my vendor, some of them, but not as much. I miss when it was like low like that, easy too. But now it's just so much easier just to get it bulk made. I can design it if I want, or they design it for me. So it's just way easier now.
So you do a little bit of both. Like you design. So what does the design process look like? Is that kind of you like making some kind of mock-up and sending it to them?
Right. Okay. And then every month they'll normally have new designs also that I can just choose from. I'm like, oh, I like this one that they just make. So I don't always have to be designing it, which I like. So I don't always have to be like thinking of new designs every month. They'll do that for me.
That's awesome, but you still get to put a little bit of that.
Yeah, I still can if I want
to.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So another thing that I think is really cool about your business is all the pop-ups that you do. You do these little vendor shows and pop-ups. How did you first get into doing that?
So in high school, no, actually it was sophomore year of college. In college I started, and my dad was like, you should do these little pop-ups. And I was so scared. Like, I love talking to people. I can talk all day, but I was like scared to sell something. I'm like, no one's going to want to buy it. I was just so nervous. And then once I did it, again, I made like a killing that one day, and it's like $40 to get these pop-ups. So your profit is very good if you do sell a lot. So I was like, that's how I started in college.
$40, that's it?
Yeah, $40 to pay for like 9 to 2. And these pop-ups are good because like everyone, like Saturday mornings, everyone goes to the pop-ups. That's what they want to do, is like the farmers market, stuff like that. So I just started in college, and then ever since, I still do them all the time. I love them.
Yeah, I see you like on your stories all the time.
Yeah, all the time. I have like them planned every single Saturday. And normally every Saturday I have 2 shows every Saturday morning. So I hire a girl to do one. I go to one.
That's awesome. So you can be in a couple places.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you have someone that actually does the shows for you so that you can kind of do a couple at once on Saturdays. How did that start, and how did you get into having someone help?
Yeah, so I do wholesale also. So at one of my trade shows, I met her, and I went to high school with her. She's a couple years younger than me, but I met a lot of the girls that work for me at the trade shows. Because they're already at the trade shows, they already work for other vendors. So I'm like, hey, when you just work for me, if you're free on the weekends. So that's how I met her.
That's awesome. And it was just like a good fit.
It was
really
perfect. She actually messaged me, and she was like, hey, I'm actually looking for a summer job. I was like, actually, if you still want to do this even after the summer, you can, because she can just pick up whenever she can. If she can't, I can always do it, So yeah, she's great, and I love her, and she does a wonderful job.
That's awesome. So, it's really cool that it worked out that it was someone from your high school too.
Yeah.
Just like you get to have that kind of hometown connection, work with someone that you'd get along with well. So kind of talking about just like, general just growth of the business. I guess one question I have is, what are some of the things that stand out in terms of stages of growth of your business over the years?
Yeah, so definitely it's grown. So I started doing wholesale, how I mentioned, and that's when it pretty much like took off. Retail is a great also, like when it's into influencers, but wholesale was really like the next step for my business. I was doing retail for 6 years, and I was just like, okay, I need something else. And retail is just amazing because that's when like the boutique owners will come to the trade shows, buy the jewelry from me in bulk. So it's like bulk orders, quick money. And I love doing the wholesale aspect of the business.
How did you get into that? Did that kind of naturally start once you started doing the shows? You just started meeting like the right people by virtue of being there?
So because the trade shows are just for wholesalers, so you have to be. I can't just like go and do retail and wholesale. It's only wholesale at those trade shows. The pop-ups are retail and stuff, but like these trade shows are specifically only for wholesalers, where the boutique owners will come and buy. But I started mainly just because I was just like, okay, what else can I do? What's the next step for my business? And one of my girlfriends was like, you should try to do wholesale. And so I was like, oh, good idea. So I just started, like just doing online wholesale for a couple years. And then I finally started doing the trade shows for almost 2 years now. And I love the trade shows because that's when like, you're going to get orders, because that's when the boutique owners will fly down just for these trade shows. So it's great.
It's probably really cool to just dive deep into the industry like that too. You probably get to meet all kinds of other people in the industry.
Yeah, and I was terrified. I was like, I literally had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, I'm just going to sign up. I'm just going to do it. Because the booth that you get is really expensive also. So I was like, I hope this goes well. But I mean, it's great and I love it.
So that was kind of like the big shifting point for you, is going wholesale. What have been some of the challenges as you've gotten into the wholesale space, or maybe just getting into it initially?
Yeah, so one challenge is mainly I do everything myself. So doing the wholesale packaging orders.
Is insane for the amount that you're doing, by the way.
Yeah.
You mentioned that.
Thank you.
It's impressive, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because my sisters are always like, can you hire me? I'm like, I'm so like a one-man person though. I just love doing it myself just because I know my sister, everyone would do a great job that wants to work for me, but I just love, it's just easier for me to not explain, how to do it. It's just like, I just want to do it. I just know I like it my way and that way only. So, so yeah.
This is a very common theme of business owners that I talk to and interview, is that it's so difficult to push work that you are so used to doing off on someone else and delegate it, because you're like, business owners tend to be very, obsessive about having control over every little aspect, because it's your business is like your baby.
Right.
It's like, it's your livelihood and it's like your thing. So for you to hand off part of it to someone, it's very difficult, because that like whatever you did to make it works, and the way you do it works.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So do you foresee that changing at some point, doing all of it yourself as it grows?
Eventually. I mean, I probably should hire at least an assistant now. I just haven't, just because, again, I just like doing it.
It's a tough thing to do, yeah.
Yeah. But I think, again, to grow and for my next step, I do need to hire someone so I have time to do other things for my business. So I feel like eventually I will.
And one thing I also want to do, I forgot to mention this, but I think you brought some jewelry too. I wanted to take a second to kind of show that. Did you want to show some of it?
Yeah.
It's really awesome. So let's take a second to just kind of show it off.
Okay, yeah. So I brought all this jewelry. I'll just show it.
It's really nice stuff, by the way. It looks awesome.
Thank you. So I'll show the stuff I want right now. These two bracelets, they're like watch bands, but a lot of people don't want to wear watches. They just like the band look, which that's me. I don't like the watches. I just want the band
less
look.
Bulky that way. Yeah, it's kind of you can have a few at once too.
Yeah, and so we sell at a trade shows, the boutique owners, they buy a ton of these too right here, and then this big large one. We sell, and all of our jewelry is waterproof. It's all 18K gold-plated stainless steel, so you can wear it in the water and it won't tarnish. And that's one of our big selling points as well.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
And then we have these rings. I'll put them all on really quick. But yeah, we sell a ton of rings. We started selling a ton of rings. That was our main selling point, in which it still is. Everyone loves our rings. But yeah, and then lastly, we have these gold hoops. A lot of people love big hoops. I wear them all the time.
Yeah, you're always repping a lot of your stuff, which is cool.
I am.
It's it's got to be cool to work in something that you enjoy wearing yourself, and always
The other day I was in
stuff.
Kansas City with my best friend at the pool, and someone was like, "Oh, I love that necklace. I want it." And I was like, "Oh, actually, I sell it. Here's my Instagram."
Exactly.
So yeah, it's I love wearing it because someone will ask me where it's from.
Yeah, if you work in the fashion space, that's something I've observed. Just knowing people that work in clothing and other related things, you're able to kind of be the best salesman of it just out of wearing it and showing it off like that. So that's cool.
For sure.
Very cool. Well, thank you for bringing that. That's awesome. It's cool to be able to show it a little bit too.
Yeah.
So another thing I wanted to get into a little bit, just kind of changing gears here, is we kind of blazed through this, but you played basketball in college. As a freshman year, you took a little break, but you stayed playing basketball through the rest of college, right? So you're playing, collegiate level basketball as you're running this business and trying to grow this business. What were some of the challenges of that? Because that had to be a lot. In school, doing basketball and running a business?
Yeah, it was very stressful, but honestly, it was the best for me because I need to be busy to manage my time wisely. If I have a bunch of time, I'll wait to the last minute to do everything, so having like my classes, then basketball practice, I knew the hours I could work on my business. I knew what day or what time, what day, all that. So it honestly helped with managing my time wisely. It was a perfect like plan. So I love playing basketball in college, and I love running the business as well. And it was good because I would advertise to my teammates like, hey, here's the new arrivals I have. So I got orders from that as well.
Easy, quick promo. Yeah. Do you think that being involved in athletics I would guess you started at a pretty young age with basketball, right? Just like being able to get to the collegiate level. How young were you when you first started?
Kindergarten.
Yeah. So you were in it for a long time. So that was probably always kind of like a cornerstone of like the structure for you. Do you think that has a lot to do with why you've been able to be successful in business and just be so consistent with it?
Yeah, definitely. And especially starting so young. That's all I knew. So I was like, especially time management, everything. It was just like a strict plan. And I just try to use that towards my business as well, like a plan. But yeah, definitely it helps starting at an early age.
Right. Because you mentioned with like the shows that you do, the pop-ups and the shows on Saturdays, it's like every Saturday.
Right.
You're on it all the time.
Have to wake up every Saturday. Yep, exactly.
Any other big challenges that stood out when you were going through that period? And obviously you've gone through a transitional period now, having graduated and moved on to like doing the business full time. But any other challenges that stand out from that period of your life?
Just playing basketball while running a business is like the hardest thing ever. The main thing I would say is like we would have away games and I could not work on my business. Obviously, we'd have to stay overnight at the hotel.
Was that frustrating?
Yeah, and it was so stressful because I'm the type of person like when I get an order, I want to do it right then and there, get it done. And I'm like, we had like nationals, we're away for a week. It's just a lot of stuff, and I didn't have anyone in college, to go to my dorm room and help me. So that was one of like the obstacles. But other than that, it was great. I knew how to do everything, time management, everything was perfect.
Any time management tips that really stand out as like important ones for you?
I would just say get on a strict schedule and stick with that. Because how I said, if I am not busy, I don't have a schedule. I just need, I can't think straight. I'm like, I'll wait later to do this, this job or this order. So it was just like having a strict schedule and sticking to that. It was like one thing that helped me a lot.
It's obviously worked out for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So you graduate and now you're working in the business full time. What are some things that extra time have allowed you to do that have kind of helped the business, would you say?
Yeah, so now I try to still do a lot of influence marketing. So I reach out to a lot of influencers still. I've had time to do way more pop-ups. I try to do pop-ups all the time. I used to even do pop-ups like outside of like boutiques.
Oh,
just
cool.
because now they do wholesale, it's good. Like it's retail and wholesale. They're like, if they like my jewelry, they'll buy from me. So I do pop-ups like that as well. But I just really now it's just like growing, try to get my name out there, a lot of trade shows, just being seen whenever I can.
And we should mention, I don't think we have yet, you're based in Atlanta.
Correct.
I think you said you grew up there, right?
I did.
Is Atlanta, have you found it to be a really good space, like a really good area to be in, like in this space in general?
Yes, for sure. And now that I do wholesale, the trade shows are normally in Vegas, Dallas, and Atlanta. So it's perfect for me because a lot of my vendors or a lot of my friends that are vendors at the trade shows that do wholesale as well, they all have to fly in, pay for the hotel, fly everything. So it's just so convenient being in Atlanta. I can just drive straight there.
It's like the biggest hub in the Southeast for flying.
Literally. Yeah, it's
awesome.
amazing. Yeah.
Very cool. So another thing I wanted to talk about is I kind of stumbled upon, just in preparation for this interview a couple weeks ago, like a really cool report off of LinkedIn. It was like a consumer commerce report, and I ended up like downloading it, looking through it. It was on fashion, jewelry, and maybe one other thing that I'm forgetting. Just kind of going over like a lot of like the metrics from maybe July through December of 2021, just like really deep into the metrics. And there was a really cool spot that stood out that I went over on jewelry in particular, like specifically in the e-commerce space that you're in, like for the most part.
Right.
And one thing that really stood out to me is as a major finding of this report is that 2/3 of transactions online in that second half of 2021 were mobile transactions. I thought that was really interesting, especially because your background is so mobile based with selling on Instagram. And eventually you got the website, but I'm sure there's like mobile version of the website that you're selling through. Do you think that that's going to continue to just grow more? Is that what you've kind of observed from being in the space?
Yeah, 100%. Especially how I said with jewelry, it's just so easy to sell online. Also, I know clothes, people want to like touch the clothes in person and stuff like that, but jewelry is just so easy, just to sell it easily online. And with TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, I think the sales is definitely going to keep growing online.
Absolutely. What are some strategies on social that have worked really well for you aside from like the influencer marketing?
Yeah, so obviously number one, influencer marketing. And I try to be consistent now with posting every day. I know Instagram changes every single day who sees your stuff, and so does Facebook. It's so annoying.
That algorithm is always cooking.
I know. So annoying. So honestly, I just try to be consistent about posting. I haven't been good at doing that, but I need to do better. And then sometimes I even plan my posts, like on Planoly. There's an app that can plan your posts. So I am consistent, make sure my feed is in front of everyone every single day. So yeah, just being consistent.
Awesome. Yeah, those little planning apps, I've used those a little bit. Those are great.
Yeah, they are when you do it, but it's just sit down and do it also.
With.
I know, it really is.
Have you found that like when you do sit down and like batch create a bunch of stuff and just like get it all ready, that works out really well?
Yeah, 100%.
That kind of transfers into like how I do this podcast, because whenever I'm able to sit down and just knock out like 4 or 5 hours of just editing and like putting stuff together, or just a few interviews back to back, maybe like 3 in a week or something, it always works out super well because you can get way ahead and just feel like you're
like, oh, finally, breath of fresh air.
Exactly. So we're kind of caught up to current day now. I wanted to talk a little bit about what you see as we've touched on this a little bit obviously, but what you see as kind of the future of your business and what excites you in the next 1 to 5 years of your business. We haven't even mentioned the name of your business yet, by the way. We should have.
It is Chandler Pearls.
Chandler Pearls.
So I'll tell you the name really quick. My first name's Chandler, last name's Sutton. And I started by literally selling those pearl necklaces. And I was like, that's all I'm going to sell. So that's how I got the name Chandler Pearls.
It's a great name. It's got a nice ring to it. Got a little bit of a U in it. Got a little bit of the industry. It's got a quick pop to it. I like it. So next 1 to 5 years for Chandler Pearls, what excites you? What is some of the kind of directions you're moving in?
So number one is definitely getting into more boutiques. That's what excites me the most, because the more trade shows I do, the more boutiques I'll be in. And it's just a huge like a bonus also, because once you are in a boutique, if they like your line, it's easy to get reorders. So I would just say mainly my main focus right now is moving forward is focusing on the wholesale, and then just getting into more boutiques.
Awesome. It sounds like you're doing the right stuff and moving in the right direction for that.
Thank
you. Absolutely. On a grand scale, thinking about like the business moving forward, one thing I wanted to touch on is just some of the metrics that you look at for growth. But I guess a good place to start with that is we kind of mentioned in passing a couple times the website, and then eventually you got a website. I'd like to talk a little bit about your experience getting the website, how that's changed the business, and and the successes and challenges you've had with that.
Yeah, so the website is definitely a plus, just because I used to have to answer like 100 DMs like all the time, 24/7, and then I'd be like, here's my Venmo, here's this. It was just so complicated. So now it's just I could literally be sleeping and get an order. I don't have to wake up and respond and stuff like that. So it's been a huge plus.
Absolutely. And if people have questions in general, you can kind of just direct them to a specific page on the website.
I'll just send them the link. Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then so another thing that comes with Instagram and socials as well, but with the website, is just the analytics. I know you mentioned you're not too obsessive with the analytics, which I think is great actually, because people could get really like caught in the analytics a lot of times. But what are some like major metrics that you like to look at, and how do you go about kind of studying those and using those as like a proxy of which direction you want to go?
Yeah. So how you said, I really don't do the analytics, just because for me, if like beginning of the year I'm not doing well, I get so discouraged. I'm like, oh, last year I was making this. So I just like to look year to date. Every year I want to see, if I've grown, put into play like the market, how that is. So I just like to stay with, every year how much I'm making. But yeah, I pretty much just do that. And then so that way I don't get too caught up in my head and everything.
Just focus on the stuff that moves you forward.
Exactly. If not, I'll get too discouraged and just like, not good.
Yeah. What is like a comfortable amount of growth year over year for you, would you say?
So it's kind of tricky, just because retail, I would have an easy answer. But now that I do wholesale, it's just because sometimes I'll have like a huge buyer, so like a big bulk of money. Sometimes I won't. So it just depends. But I mean, every year I would at least say 50K growth, which has so far it's been good just because of the wholesale. It's easy to make that normally. But in the future, I hope to get more than that every year.
Yeah. And now you've got like multiple branches between the wholesale and the retail. So you got like kind of two different avenues of the business to look at.
Right. And I have started doing, one thing I'll mention that's pretty neat is zip code protection for my wholesale clients. Not all the time, but like, so what it is, yeah. So a boutique will ask, normally a bigger boutique will be like, hey, do you do zip code protection? Which means that I will only sell my jewelry line to that one boutique in that zip code. So it's not competitive. You know, my jewelry line is like, they're very competitive. So that boutique will only have my jewelry.
That's awesome.
Pieces. So I actually just got a zip code protection client. She asked me, I was like, sure, but my deal is you can do zip code, I'll do zip code protection, but you have to be spending $5K quarterly on my jewelry line, which is $20,000 a year. And she's like, okay, totally fine. So it's good, but it's just, I can't do too many of those clients because at my trade shows, it's a lot for just me to be like, oh, are you in the zip code protection? I need to make sure this boutique's protected. But that's a good thing with growth as well, is that just going to probably do some more zip code protections.
That's very cool. Any other, I really like that. And I feel like that makes for a very good selling point. It probably makes the difference between like certain clients that you may not have been able to sell them on it otherwise. Right. Are there any other things that stand out that are a little like kind of customer service related or just like extra things that you throw in that you think have really helped with the business?
Yeah, so I started actually just doing this year is saying lifetime warranty on everything, all jewelry, lifetime warranty. And the boutique owners like it the most just because, you know, it's jewelry, so it might eventually break or something will happen. I'm like, even 3 years from now, lifetime protection will get you a new one for free. So a lot of the boutique owners love when I say that.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And it really solidifies you as a strong brand that they can have a lot of confidence in.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So another question I always like to ask, I think I told you about this one before. If you could go back in time and just like talk to a younger Chandler, like as she's like first getting into the industry, first putting together that jewelry that you were going to sell that weekend, what are some things that having the knowledge that you have now that you would tell her like to do differently, or some advice that you would give her getting started out?
I would just say be confident and keep going. I mean, I know being an entrepreneur is so hard because you have your ups and downs. Like even my freshman year of college, when I literally made like no orders, spent all my money, I was just like, I'm not going to do this. And then sophomore year, I completely turned around, made a ton. Sophomore year of college, probably like my highest money I've made when I started my business. So I would just say keep going. Do not get discouraged because it is easy to get discouraged in this field. But yeah, just be confident, sell as much as you can, and then be in front of people as much as you can as well.
I love that. And talking about kind of being in the entrepreneurial space, did you always see yourself as a future business owner, or was that something that didn't really come around until later on for you?
Yeah, so in high school when I first started making the necklaces, I did, like, before that even happened, I wasn't like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I don't really care to. Mm-hmm. But then once I started selling the necklaces and made easy money like that, I'm like, this is my passion. This is what I love doing. So after that, I've just been like, I'm only doing this. I've had corporate jobs before, and I'm like, I don't like working for anyone else. Yep. I like doing my own thing. I just feel like I'm way more hard worker, obviously doing my own thing than working for someone else. So I'm like, I cannot see me doing anything else besides being my own, boss.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit. Yeah. There's a lot of power in being your own boss.
For sure.
It just feels really good being able to kind of wake up day to day. And, you would almost think that like a common misconception with people who are not working for themselves is like, you wouldn't have to work as much. We probably end up working way more than most 100%. People with like a 9 to 5, like way more. I mean, my close friends will tell you I'm ridiculous. I take phone calls all the time.
Yeah.
It could be
even
annoying
on vacation.
And stuff.
Like I'm on vacation right now. I'm like, every time someone texts me, I'm like, I don't want to respond because I'm on vacation. But I'm like, you have to.
Exactly.
You have to.
You're the person. It all goes through you. Mm-hmm. But it's also, I mean, if it's what you're passionate about, it's very rewarding.
It's so worth
awesome.
It. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, Chandler, anything else that you want to kind of leave the audience with? Any plugs that you have? Anything that you have coming up?
Yeah, I would just say follow us on Instagram.
Yes.
Literally, the Instagram is ChandSutPearls.
And I'll put links to everything in the show notes if you're listening on audio and in the description if you're watching on YouTube.
Okay, Okay, perfect. Yeah, and then just a reminder, we do retail and wholesale as well.
And check out her shows if you get the chance.
Yes.
Come to some of her pop-ups, especially if you're in Atlanta. I think that's where you do most of them, right? You travel a little bit as well.
Yeah, I travel some, but I do most in Atlanta. And Andy actually told me that I could do one here. So I'm like, I might do one in Jacksonville.
Absolutely. You're welcome to do one in Orlando if you ever want to come back.
Yeah, right.
And thank you for coming. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was really awesome.
Yeah,
I really
thank
enjoyed
you.
it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Profession Session. I'm your host, Brody Vinson, and my guest has been Chandler Sutton of Sut Pearls. And we're going to go ahead and sign off there. Thanks so much for tuning into Profession Session. I'm your host, Brody Vinson. Stay tuned for new episodes every week and short clips of deep dives into specific topics that I put out on different social media channels. We could be found on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, all major podcast platforms. You can find my guest in the details of this video or podcast. And if you happen to know a young standout business owner, professional, or entrepreneur that you would think would be a good fit for Profession Session, DM me or get in contact with me anywhere and just let me know. And they could be the next to tell their story here. Until next time, again, this has been Profession Session. Stay focused, stay hustling, and stay networking.